The teaching text is Mark 14, verses 12 through 31. In our series on the Gospel of Mark titled, He is Good, this is what Mark writes. On the first day of the festival of the unleavened bread, when it was customary to sacrifice the Passover lamb, Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to go and make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" And so he sent two of his disciples, telling them, "Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. Say to the owner of the house he enters, 'The teacher asks, where is my guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there." And the disciples left, went into the city, and found things just as Jesus had told them. And so they prepared the Passover. And when evening came, Jesus arrived with the 12. While they were reclining at the table, eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." And they were saddened, and one by one they said to him, "Surely you don't mean me?" "It is one of the 12, he replied, "one who dips bread into the bowl with me. And the Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born." And while they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take it, this is my body." And then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it. "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many," he said to them. "Truly I tell you, I will not drink again from the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God." And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. "You will all fall away from me," Jesus told them. "For it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter declared, "Even if all fall away, I will not." "Truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. But Peter insisted emphatically, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the others said the same. This is the word of the Lord. The day I proposed to my wife, the day I proposed to Rainey, was awesome. And I made sure, I had it set up exactly the way that I wanted it to go, okay? The whole thing was set up perfectly. The day before that day, I had gone to Evanston, Illinois on this beach and found the spot. I was like, this is gonna be just the best spot for us to come here and sit at, and we'll have it here. The day of, we had bought her favorite foods and some of our favorite snacks, packed our favorite books to lay on the beach and read, and we packed some games and stuff to play, and we had a blanket there and the whole thing. I had a cameraman hiding in the trees to document the whole thing because that was something that she wanted, and so I had prepared everything. This is even before Instagram, so we were just balling hard. It was just what we needed to do. I had the ring. It wasn't in a pocket. I think it was in my backpack or something, but it was in this special spot that I could get to really fast, but she wouldn't know that it was there and she wouldn't find it. Everything of that day, everything for that day was set up exactly the way that I wanted it to go, because to me, I needed to ask something very important, and I needed the answer to go a very specific way. I need this to go this way. I need to tell you something very important. And so everything has to be set up very, very perfectly in order to communicate this message to you. I say that because that's what Jesus is doing here. He's doing something similar with the Passover meal. You see in verse 13 through 16, he has set up everything exactly the way that he wants it to go. He's already communicated this to somebody. He's already got a plan in place. He wants to express something to his disciples and to us now who are reading this text. But he is setting this meal up to communicate something very, very important. N.T. Wright in his commentary says, this meal is not just another meal. This meal will say what Jesus most wants to say to his followers. This is exactly I want to say something very, very specific. And so what I want to do today is look at 2 things that are communicated, that Jesus communicates through this meal. And the first thing that he communicates is that he chose to suffer for us. And the second thing that he communicates is that he wants to set us free from slavery. So the first thing that Jesus communicates through this meal is that he is choosing to suffer for us. In verses 18 through 21, Jesus tells the group that he knows that he's about to be betrayed. He tells them about the betrayal, and he gets super specific when he does it. And so he starts with like, it's one of you, then he gets a little deeper. One of you will betray me, one who is eating with me. It's definitely one of the 12, and it's the one who dips bread in the bowl with me. Like he keeps digging deeper into this thing. And it's like, which one? It's like, well, it's gonna be the one of the 12. Which one? It's the one who dips bread in the bowl with me. They still didn't really get it, but he is very specific. And what he's doing, what he's showing everyone by saying this, he's like, I know what's coming. This isn't a surprise to me. The person, the betrayer who is sitting in this room, like, I know this is about to happen, and I know who you are. I know exactly what's about to take place, and I could clearly stop this. And what he's saying, like, I could clearly stop my suffering. I could clearly stop the betrayal because I know exactly who's going to do it. But instead of stopping it, he chooses to move through with it. He chooses to suffer for us. He chooses to allow what's going to happen. He chooses to allow it to happen, for him to lay down his life so that he could suffer for us. He could have easily said to Peter, who was ready to chop somebody's ear off anyways, he's just ready to go. He could have easily said like, hey, it's Judas, it's this guy, let's get him and let's avoid this thing. He absolutely could have done that. But he chooses not to do that. Instead, he chooses to actually allow this thing to happen and to enter into the suffering, and to enter into the pain. He chooses to allow it to be this space where he suffers for us in order to bring us to God and to bring something about in our lives that blesses us. He wants to and is choosing to. I'm not just accidentally laying my life down as a sacrifice and a ransom for many. I am choosing. I could stop it if I want to. I know what's about to happen, but I'm choosing to lay my life down as a ransom for many. And among other things that exist, but more than anything, this separates Jesus and the Christian faith from every other religion. Other religions get a lot of play, and I know we have a lot of conversations about like, how do we know that ours is real and whatever. But among all the different things, what separates Jesus and the Christian faith from every other religion is every other religion says, you suffer. You suffer for, if you want something great, you suffer for it. Like if you want it, you do the work. So Buddhism says that if you want to reach enlightenment, you have to master the eightfold path. You want it, suffer for it, you do it. Hinduism says you want a better life, that's up to you. Just do more good in this life than bad, and then you'll have a better life on the other end of it. You suffer for it. Judaism says we got to keep the covenant, keep the law perfectly. Islam says you want that? Like you got to follow the 5 pillars. Judgment will be based on your deeds. How well did you do? How much good did you do? How much work did you actually do that was good? Atheism, not really religion, although it can be. Atheism says, hey, look, there's nobody coming to save you. If you want a good life, just figure it out on your own. There's no one coming to help you. It is up to you. If it's going to be something that you experience that's good, it's going to be up to you. And so they all say, every other religion says, if you want something better, if you want a better life, if you want something good on the other side of it, if you want to get to God or enlightenment or however they talk about it, if you want that, that's fine. But somebody has to suffer for it, and they all say, you got to suffer for it. Jesus is the only one that says, I will actually do that thing for you. I will pay the price. I will be the one who suffers for you. I'll do the work that you're actually supposed to do. I will do the work in order to bring you to God. And to me, in this, all the other religions and all these questions about like, is one of them more real than the other one and stuff like that? Like when you see someone choosing suffering, like we all recognize in our hearts somewhere that like, that is more admirable. That is more lovely. That's more kind. That's more gracious. Like there's just something about that we are actually drawn to when you see somebody going, I'm not calling you to suffer. I tell you what, somebody needs to suffer. I will do it for you so that you don't actually have to experience it. I was talking to my dad this week and I was fact-checking a story I was going to tell about him because I wanted to make sure it was correct. But my dad, he still works at Delta. He's retiring in a couple of weeks. And he worked at Delta during 9/11. And after 9/11, there was a lot of layoffs. There was a lot of pay cuts and things like that. And he was able to keep his job, thank God. But he did have to deal with a lot of pay cuts and different things that were happening. And we were able to afford our bills and pay for our bills, but that particular year, we just weren't going to be able to have Christmas. Like we had no money left over at the end for Christmas and Christmas gifts. And so what my dad decided to do was to get a second job. And so he woke up at 5:30 in the morning to go to Delta for work, got home around, or left work around 5, and then got home around 5:30 if the traffic was good. Then he would have dinner with his 4 kids, talk about our days. He checked our schoolwork. shoot basketball, throw the baseball, whatever, and then he would head back to work to the Toys R Us shipping warehouse that was right up the street. And he would work from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. And he'd get off at 2 a.m., drive 15 minutes home, get in bed around 2:30, sleep until 5:30 in the morning, and then do that again. And he did that 5 days a week, every week for a number of months in order just to make sure that we could have a magical Christmas. And as a kid, like, I didn't understand that. Like, I didn't understand what he was doing. I told him, I was like, I got mad at him for leaving every night. And then some nights he'd be driving from Delta, from Atlanta, down back into Henry County, where we're from, and he'd hit traffic. And so he actually would be so late in traffic, he couldn't come home for dinner. He would have to just continue going straight on to Toys R Us so he could be there on time. And I was so mad at him for doing that. And just like, why are you doing this thing? I'm like, Santa brings us gifts. And he was just, you know, like, didn't say anything about any of that. He was just doing his thing. And he told me, he goes, y'all never knew. He goes, but there were some nights when I couldn't make it home because of traffic, so I had to go straight there. And there were some nights where, like, 3 nights in a row, like, I didn't see you guys at all. Like, I left in the morning before you were up. I got home while you were in bed, and that just happened over and over. And he was like, every time I'd sit in the parking lot at Toys R Us, and I would just weep because I could not see my kids. Like this whole thing that he was just walking through and just not unable to see his kids. But he was like, but I'm doing this for something good. I'm doing this for something good. And I was talking to him about it on the phone, and I got him, like, I was like, as a kid, I was stupid and didn't understand. But as an adult, like, it makes me emotional because he was just choosing to suffer on behalf of his kids, choosing to do something that we obviously couldn't do. And he was choosing to do that for his kids, all because he wanted to give us Christmas presents, which honestly we probably, you know, played with for 2 weeks and then forgot about or broke real fast. And it was like, but he was still trying to do this thing to make our Christmas great. And to me, it's like, people like that. Like, it demands admiration. There's something about, like, he could have been like, no, 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, like, you go get your own job. I have a job. I work at Delta. What do you do? But he didn't do any of that. Like, he obviously, he didn't say any of that to his kids. He was like, I will take the hit. I will do the thing. And so he chose, my dad chose to find a way to buy stuff for us. And I think, to me, like, when you look at Jesus and what he's done, he's like, he has done that and more. He has done completely more than that. Every other religion is telling you, like, you go buy your own Christmas presents. And Jesus is like, no, I'm not going to make them do that. I actually want to make a way where they can actually experience something better for themselves, and they don't have to do it. I will take that on. I will suffer for them. Greg Boyd, one of my favorite quotes, he says, despite our sin, our Creator thinks that we are worth experiencing a hellish death for. In fact, it was for the joy of spending eternity with us that Jesus endured the cross. In other words, the cross reveals our unsurpassable worth and significance to God. Our unsurpassable worth and significance to God. So every time we take the bread and the cup, every time we do that every single week, it's supposed to remind us that, like, he believes that we are worth experiencing a hellish death for. And so this is why he's worthy of our worship, not just like our consideration. Like, he's worthy of our actual worship, to, like, lay down everything for him. Like, no one has treated us this way. No one has done to do this. No one has chosen to do this except him. Everybody else requires us to pay the price, and he's like, I'll pay it for you. This is why he's worthy of our trust. Anybody who's willing to lay down their life for us will also take care of the other needs that we have throughout our world and throughout our days and all the different things. If he is willing to lay down his life for us, how much more will he willingly take care of my everyday needs? So Jesus is communicating, I could stop it, but I'm choosing not to. Out of love for you and to do something for you, I am choosing to suffer so that you can actually experience something far better. So that's the first. The second thing that Jesus communicates is that he wants to set us free. He wants to set us free from slavery. He wants to set us free from slavery. We see this in verse 22 through 24, but before I read it, because I'm going to read it here in a second, in order to actually understand that Jesus is saying this to us, that he is saying, like, I want to set you free specifically from a slavery, you have to understand what he's doing at this meal. And so Jesus is celebrating this time, this text that we read with the bread and the cup. He's celebrating the Passover, the ancient practice of Passover, where they took food and they took drinks and they took liturgy and they took all these things, and it was a way for them to behold and remember and be reminded of, do you remember the time that God redeemed us and saved us out of slavery in Egypt? This is what the practice is, and that's what Jesus is actively doing right there. It's a Passover celebration. And everything at this Passover celebration was supposed to remind everybody sitting around the table, it's supposed to point back to what God did in Egypt and how he redeemed them and saved them out of slavery. And so there were 6 elements, symbolic elements that they were required to have on hand. And if you come to the Seder supper with us here in March, you'll experience some of this. But the 6 symbolic elements that they were supposed to have in order to recall what God had done. The first was they needed to have unleavened bread. Unleavened bread, and you had this because when Israel left Egypt, they left in such haste that they took their dough before it had leavened. And then there was a bowl of salt water that they had on the table. This was to remind them of the tears that Israel shed while in bondage and slavery. Also to remind them of the waters of the Red Sea through which God had brought them out on dry land. Then there was a collection of bitter herbs, horseradish, celery, parsley. These were to be eaten with the Passover meal to remind them of the bitter experience that Israel had endured as slaves. Then there was this fruit paste or sauce called karasheth. This was made of apples, dates, pomegranates, and nuts. Running through it were sticks of cinnamon. This was to remind them of the clay with which they had to make bricks in Egypt, and the cinnamon was to remind them of the straw that they had to add to the clay. Then there were 4 cups of wine, each one representing something else, and it all kind of symbolized the 4 promises that God gave to them in Exodus 6. And so one cup would be like, the first cup is, then they would talk about, I will bring you out from under the yoke of slavery in Egypt. Then they'd drink the second cup and they would remember, I will free you from being slave to them. The third cup, I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. Then the fourth cup, I will take you as my own people and I will be your God. And then there was the Passover lamb. It was to be a year old without blemish, to remind the people of the blood of the lamb that was put on the doorposts of their homes that caused the judgment of God to pass over Israel's households, but then fell on the Egyptians. So they had these 6 elements and everything was to point back. Do you remember the time? All of these things are meant. Do you remember how he redeemed you? Do you remember how he saved you out of slavery to Egypt? And then there were 16 steps to this Passover meal, 16 things that they were supposed to do to remind them of these things. I don't have time to read all 16, but I do want to read the final 5, 12 through 16, because that's what Jesus does here in this text. You're seeing the 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 in this. But there are 16 steps. Step 12 was the remainder of the Passover bread was to be brought out and eaten. So Jesus takes bread, and then step 13 was to pray a prayer of thanksgiving for that bread. It says that after he took bread, he gave thanks for it, and so he's doing those things. Step 14, all would drink the third cup, the cup of redemption, which corresponds to the promise, I will also redeem you with an outstretched arm. And then they would sing a hymn, step 15, and step 16, they would drink the final cup, the cup of consummation or restoration. And that would correspond to, then I will take you as my people. I will be your God, and you will be my people. And again, all of it, all of these steps, everything, all of it was meant and was supposed to remind the people, do you remember how God saved Israel out of slavery to them? You need to remember that. The difference in what Jesus does here is he takes this ancient practice, and instead of being reminded of what God did back then in saving people out of slavery, Jesus focuses it and makes it about him. He's like, as God saved people out of slavery, I want y'all to start thinking about me and what I'm doing. And so Sean Merrithew, who is a pastor and a writer, he rolls through this and says, steps 12 and 13, instead of saying the traditional words that Jesus is supposed to say, this is the bread of the affliction which our fathers ate in the land of Egypt. Jesus says, take, eat, this is my body. Not the bread of affliction that you guys are going to eat. This is the bread of affliction that I'm about to eat. This is my body. Step 14, he takes the cup of redemption, the third cup of wine. He gave thanks and gave it to his disciples. And instead of saying the promise, God will redeem them with an outstretched arm, he says, this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. This is my blood. And so instead of God's outstretched arm going to save people, it's Jesus' outstretched arms that are going to save people. Step 15 and 16, then he told them that he would not drink the final cup, this cup where God's people are finally his people and they dwell together. He's like, I will drink that cup. I will just drink that later when we actually sit together in my kingdom and enjoy that time. And then they sing a hymn and they leave. And so Mark Strauss adds to this. He says, Jesus takes the traditional Jewish Passover celebration. He takes the traditional Jewish Passover celebration and transforms its significance for all time. What was formerly a celebration of Israel's redemption from slavery in Egypt will become a remembrance and celebration of a new Exodus where Jesus delivers his people from the power of sin and Satan. It will be a new Exodus. You had this old Exodus where Israel was saved out of slavery, and now you will have this new Exodus that Jesus does where he saves his people from sin and Satan. And so the point of all of this is that using this meal, like, because it seems that Jesus could like have done this at any particular time, but he wants to use this meal and he wants to use this space and he wants to reinterpret it in such a way because he's trying to communicate something very important. And what he's saying, he's like, just as God came to rescue Israel out of slavery to Egypt, I have come to rescue you and to save you out of slavery to sin and to Satan. That is what I've come to do. And it's supposed to be this thing like that we're reminded, and it's like the shift that happens between they needed to actually be saved out of, they knew like we are enslaved in Egypt. You need to know you are enslaved to sin, and that he actually wants to do that thing. The same way that the rejoicing and the joy that the Israelites must have felt when they were finally let go from their slave masters and their chains had fallen off and they were able to actually leave their bondage. He's like, I want to do the exact same thing for every single person that comes to me. And so the blood of the lamb back then that you dabbed on the doorpost released Israel out of slavery to Egypt. Now the blood of Jesus, who is the Lamb of God, will release us out of slavery to sin. That is what Jesus wants to do for you. And so if you've ever wondered, like, what does he want with my life? What does Jesus want to do? I'm new to this Jesus thing. What does he want to do? Like, what he wants to do is he wants to free you and he wants to free me from being enslaved to sin. He sees us as people who are enslaved to something lesser, something worse, something death-like instead of life-like. He sees us enslaved to those things. He does not see you, and he does not see me as someone who is a sinful rebel needing to be punished. He sees us as someone who is bearing the weight of sin, enslaved to it, and we don't need to be punished for it. We need to be released from it. He's like, I see you as slaves, not as rebels. I want to free you. I don't want to punish you. And that's what he wants to do. He sees us as enslaved to sin. And I was at a conference this whole week, and I was talking to Boyd, and I've talked to my wife about this, but like, my trouble with telling people that they're enslaved to sin is, if you were to go to an Israelite slave and go to a slave in Egypt and say, hey, Israelite slave, good to see you, sorry about this. You're enslaved to sin, or excuse me, you're enslaved to Egypt. They would say, of course I am. I know that. I know that I'm enslaved to Egypt. If you told them that, they would know that. To me now, if I tell someone you're enslaved to sin, people look at me like I have two heads. They're like, what are you talking about? No, I'm not. Like, doesn't make any sense. Like, it's so hard to communicate to somebody like, hey, no, genuinely the scriptures say that. It's like, well, I don't believe the Bible, and therefore that doesn't apply to me. It's like, okay. And so it's so difficult to say this to someone. And so Jesus' good news of like, I want to release you from slavery is supposed to hit us as like, thank you, thank God. Because if somebody, when God came to Israel and said, I'm going to save you out of slavery, they were thrilled. This is going to be amazing. And so Jesus makes this exact same statement to people like, I'm going to save you from slavery too. And people are like, I don't know. I could stop sinning whenever I want. I'm actually not actually trapped into this thing. And so if that's you, if you're just like, I don't think any of this is real, I don't think I'm actually enslaved to sin, what I would encourage you to do is just consider other people in your life that you do think are like trapped in something. Because I think we're pretty good at seeing in other people's lives, like, honestly, if you would just make this decision, and this decision, all of your problems would basically go away. You're just terrible at living, and if you would do something different, it would be better. And so we have people in our life, sometimes it's your kids, sometimes it's your best friend, and you just can't say anything, sometimes it's coworkers, and they're like, I just don't know why life is so hard. And it's like, I have 3 reasons, and they're all about you. You can look at those people and you can see them trapped in something. And you could say that like all they need to do is something different. It's like, but they're trapped. They're blind to it. They can't even see it. And to me, if you can see that in someone else's life, you just see them stuck and you're like, dude, until they change, they're never gonna have something different. They want something different. But until they change, they're never gonna experience it. If you can think of somebody where that's true of you, there is somebody that can think that about you as well. If you can see that in somebody's life, they can see it in your life. And if you just know, if you're like, no, I know I'm trapped in sin, like I have some things that are just ruling my life, if you know that, then I have good news for you. Jesus' one and only goal, he's like, I am choosing to suffer, to set you free, to break those bondage chains. The chains are invisible and they're hard to see. Your slave master is invisible and is hard to see, but they still exist and I want to set you free. And so Jesus is saying, what I want to do is I want to set you free from those who are enslaved to sin, and that's all of us. And you get this picture of what slavery to sin actually looks like, because it's so subtle and it's so small, but you get a picture in the disciples of what it actually looks like to be enslaved to sin. And so look at verse 27 through 31. Jesus basically says, you're going to live a life you don't want to live. And they're like, no, we're not. And he's like, yes, you are. You're going to fall away. I will strike the sheep, or the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. After I've risen, I'll go ahead of you to Galilee. And Peter declares, look, man, I'm not going to fall away. I'm the best. All these fools could fall away, not me. I will not. And he says, truly, I tell you, you're actually going to double down tonight. You're going to, before the rooster crows, twice yourself will disown me. You will disown me 3 times. But Peter insisted emphatically, even if I have to die with you, even if I have to die, I will never disown you. And then all the others are like, yeah, us too. And so it's this space where Jesus is telling them, you are going to live a life that you're actively trying to avoid. And what does it mean to be enslaved to sin? It means making every single decision in our lives trying to lead us to abundance. I want to make this decision in order for this to go well in my life. No one is sitting there going I can't wait to blow my life up into a million pieces and make it as miserable and as terrible as possible. So I'm going to make decisions in order to get that way. Nobody does that. All of our decisions are made to make our lives more comfortable, more easy, and to lead us into abundance. All of our decisions are that way. And that's theirs as well. They're like, we want to make decisions that make our lives better. And you need to see that. They actually don't want to fall away. They don't want to live that life. They don't want to be those people. They don't want this written down for eternity. They don't want to be the people that walked away and ran away. Peter really does want to be able to not deny Jesus. He really has it in his heart. I really do want to be able to die with you, to stand beside you. I want to be able to be that person. I do not want to be controlled by my fear. And Jesus is like, I know, but you are. You are controlled by your fear. You are controlled by all of these things. And so even though Jesus gave them a heads up, hey, here's what's coming, even though all of their best intentions are, I want to live a better life than what you're telling me I'm going to live, even though I'm aiming at something better, even though I'm trying to make different decisions, somehow they still do this thing. They live the life that they were trying actively to avoid. I'm trying to not live that life. How did I end up living that life? And that's us. I was trying to make my life great. How is my life still bad? I was trying to fill my life with things. How am I still not full? How is this possible? And what Jesus is saying is you guys are enslaved to sin in as much as everybody else is. Trying to aim at something better and always finding yourself in a space that's worse. Trying to miss the life. I'm trying to avoid that life. How did I wind up in it? And it's almost like there's someone else calling the shots. It's almost like that they're enslaved into something that they cannot escape. And that's what it looks like. And this is what Jesus is saying. I actually do want to rescue you from that. Constantly working yourself to the bone, trying to avoid a life and then finding yourself in it. Sounds like a slave master. I just want to be free. I just want to do something better. I just want to make a decision that leads me into something else. And all the decisions, everything just keeps leading me to something lesser. And he's like, I want to free you from that. You are enslaved to decisions that you don't even want to make. You're enslaved to a way of thinking that you don't even want to think. You want to avoid it. You want abundance, but you just can't get there. And that's what Jesus wants to rescue us from. And if we do not allow him to do that, if we just continue to push him off and go, I'm not enslaved to sin. I don't need an abolitionist. I don't need someone to actually free me from slavery. I'm not enslaved. Then you will continue to live a life where you're trying to avoid something and you will find yourself in that space because we are enslaved to something worse. And he has come in kindness to actually set us free from that thing. And the way that he does that is if you place your trust in him, if you just ask him to do that, I would like to be free from my sin. I don't want to be held down by these things. If you can actually see things in your life where it's this is still gripping me, this is still holding me, this is doing something to me, this is doing something to my family, this is doing something to my future, there's something in me that seems to hold me into a space where I cannot be free from this thing. If you will ask him, that is what he has promised to do. That's what he wants to do. And as you walk with him inside the church, you're supposed to do this in community. As you walk with him, he will free you over and over and over again. He will set you free in these progressive ways that he does. He will move into your life and actually set you free. That's what he does. The church is supposed to be a space where not only you encounter the abolitionist that wants to set you free from slavery, but it's also to be the space where you actually learn to follow that man out into greater and greater freedom. Everybody wants to hijack the church now. Currently, People are trying to hijack the church to make it about the news. Talk more about the news. Like, dude, there's 24-hour news. You can get the news wherever. I don't want to talk about Charlie Kirk. I don't want to talk about Minneapolis. Like, can there be one space in the world where we only talk about Jesus? Can it be his house where we talk about him? I don't want to bring the news into this space. It's the enemy at work trying to do that. Like, try to get the church to talk about anything else other than the one who can actually set people free from the slavery I have them pinned down in. The church is supposed to be the space where you meet the man who can actually set you free and teaches you how to actually follow him. Here's how you pray. Here's how you read the scriptures. Here's how you walk with him so that you experience the freedom that he longs to give you. That's what he wants to do. He wants to set you free from slavery to sin. And I have experienced this over and over and over again. Most of y'all did not have the I was going to say privilege, but it's really like a burden. You didn't have to endure who I was before I actually came to Jesus. But I was brutal. And at dinners, sometimes y'all have asked me to share some stories, and I've shared some stories that live on in infamy. But my way of looking at the world and looking at people was like, if you can give me something, if you have something I need, I will take it. Or I'll manipulate you to get it. And if you have nothing for me, then I will treat you like the piece of garbage that you are. That's how I basically saw people. I was a really kind person. And even in the midst of it, like I was completely empty, like just constantly trying to search for something to fill me. And so if you had something I thought would do it, I would just take it. And I was still empty, like there was nothing that would do it. And so what I found was like with this emptiness that I was experiencing, what I found was like I couldn't get rid of it, I couldn't fill it, but I could quiet it. And so girls quieted it, if I could find a girl that would spend any time with me. Drinking quieted it a lot, I could just turn my brain off. Or baseball, actually, I could just lose myself into competition and my ambitions. And so those three things were like these numbing mechanisms that I used. But I hated the life that I was in. I understand when if somebody's like, you're trapped in something, I would have been like, yeah, I know, I just don't know how to get out. I'm stuck. And then, man, one night, I'm telling you, like, just getting to the end of myself and getting to the end of that space and going like, all right, I've heard these stories that you can do this stuff. And so like, I'm just gonna let you in to do it. I'm gonna give you my life. I'm gonna surrender it to you. I'm gonna give him 6 months. You get 6 months to prove to me that you can actually do something better than me. And y'all, again, believe me or don't, but like, it was immediate where like the emptiness that I felt in my heart, that like this angst, this thing that I could not get rid of, like he took that away immediately. Like it was like, all of a sudden I was like filled with something that was far better. And I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so much better. And so what it did was like, I didn't need girls, beers, or baseball, or back then what I called them babes, beer, and baseball, which was not good. But I didn't need that. I was like, I don't need this anymore to try and fill something up. I don't actually need that. Like so I was able to treat people nicer and just play baseball like a game versus something I needed. And I wasn't interested in drinking and stuff anymore until I was 21. And then, but anyways. But it was. He did that thing. And then he kept moving into my life, freeing me from different things. The next thing that I can remember that he freed me from was being a people pleaser. I grew up in a family where I wanted to be the favorite. I wanted to be the one that made everybody happy and all these different things. And honestly, that life was killing me and making me miserable and just stuck in this thing that I'm like, I just hate. I can never express my actual opinion of something. I'm just gonna express the opinion that people like. And like living that life, I forgot who I was. And so Jesus took away this fear of other people and their opinions, took away this fear of their rejection. Like, what if they don't like me? And it's like, honestly, I got him. He's made me feel better than all you fools. And so if y'all wanna leave me, fine, but he's never gonna leave. And so he took that away and led me to actually be somebody who actually has thoughts and I'm able to do that. It made a lot of my relationships harder because people like it a lot more when you're a doormat. It's a lot easier just to walk all over you, but now you have opinions and now you have a thought. But he changed that in me, freed me from being a slave to what people thought of me. Then he went to work on my ego and my pride and my self-control. He's doing this now, y'all, like trying to free me from feeling like all of my life and everything in my life is bent around this church. And I'm like, I'm just a slave to success. I'm just going like, if this is successful, then you will be successful. He's trying to free me from that. And I can feel that and I want that. Because I just want to love people and love this church and not feel like if it doesn't succeed, then I will die. Like, I don't want that. What a terrible thing to do. And so he's trying to free me from that. He freed me. Like, going bald was not something I wanted, y'all. I'm letting you in, okay? I'm being vulnerable, all right? So be kind. I didn't want to go bald. My vanity was like, I don't want this to happen. Like, Rainey married me with hair. What's she gonna do? Like, but following Jesus and having that experience was like, honestly, he helped me with that. Anyways, I'm letting you in. Just be kind to me later. But he's worked on those things. Following Jesus to me has been many things, but one of the defining characteristics of following Jesus, it has been, he has set me free from stuff that I also don't want. And so my life with him has been, if I find something in my mind or in my heart or in my actions, and I'm like, I don't want that to shape my son. I don't want that to be a part of my marriage. I don't want to bring that into my church. I just don't want that to be a part of me. Jesus, do that thing that you do. Set me free. Do that thing. And he has constantly been like, that is what I came to do. And so I will do that. And it's not fast. Most of the time, it's real slow. But over the past week, I was reflecting on, at this conference with Boyd, we went together, which was awesome. But I just reflected on like, why do I preach? Why don't I just go do something else? Why do I preach about Jesus? Most of the people I tell these stories, they don't even believe half of what I'm saying anyways. Why am I doing this? And I really came back to, just in a time of prayer, I just came back to like, my experience isn't fake and I'm not lying. He actually has set me free. And so I'm just gonna give my life to try and convince people who are stuck and enslaved in sin. I'm gonna try and convince them to believe that he actually will do that. He actually can lead you into something greater. He has better plans for you than you have for yourself. His ambitions for you are grander than what you have. And so I just wanna give my life. Like, are you gonna continue doing this? Yeah. I'm like, well, people don't believe half of what you say. It's like, well, I'm gonna do my best to try and convince them. You'd be shocked what I was able to convince people of in high school, and that was with sin. I'm gonna try and do it with Jesus now. And like, just try and tell them like what's true about him, because he's done this for me, and I want them to experience what I've experienced. He will set you free. He will do those things. And so if you have not surrendered your life to Jesus, I don't know what you're waiting for, but you should do that today. You should tell him, I do not want to be enslaved to sin. Would you please set me free? You should pray that to him and tell that to him today. That's what he wants to do. This meal that we're about to share together, this practice that we do every single week, he is telling you, hey, look, if you've ever wondered if I love you, I chose to suffer for you. I could have gotten out. I chose to lean in. Everybody else, when they're about to face suffering, would have bailed. All of us do that. If my sister had been asked, hey, your husband, when he goes to work on February 9th, tomorrow, 5 years ago, when he goes to work, he's gonna get shot and killed. Would you rather avoid that suffering? She would say, absolutely. The people who sent their kids to that camp in Texas where the flood came through and washed them out, if they had known beforehand, hey, suffering's coming, do you still wanna send your kid into that suffering? What do you think they'd say? They'd be like, absolutely not. No, I'm not sending my kid to that camp. I'm not gonna deal with that suffering. Jesus knows the suffering is coming and he chooses to suffer anyways because he actually has something better for you that he wants to lead you into. And so anybody that chooses that suffering for you is worthy of at least your attention, but definitely something of your admiration to look at him and go, why do you love me like this? Anybody would choose to avoid that stuff, and he chose not to. He has chosen to suffer for you, and he is promising, I will set you free here and now, and I will do it for the rest of your life from things. You want to avoid a certain type of life? I also have better life for you available, but you cannot do that unless I set you free. Let me set you free. That's what this meal testifies to every single week. And so this morning, I want us to respond in 3 ways. Worship team, y'all can come on up. I want you to respond in 3 different groups, 3 different ways. 1, if you have never actually surrendered your life to Jesus, again, what are you waiting for? He is not a slave master trying to enslave you to a bunch of rules. You were actually enslaved and he's trying to set you free. Let him do that thing. Let him do that. Talk to him yourself and pray. I need you to set me free from my sin. If you can see it in your life, you see it in your marriage, you see it in how you raise your kids, you see it in how addicted you are to your phone, you see it in how addicted you are to other things. If you see it, He wants to set you free. He sees it too, and he's not trying to punish you over it or condemn you over it. He is trying to release that from you and get you free from that. And so if you've never done that, tell him, I need you to set me free from my sin. I welcome you to do that thing in my life. Set me free. And then if maybe for you, if there are areas in your life where you're like, I believe in Jesus. He has set me free from sin, but there's still areas where I'm struggling to be free from certain sins, and they just have a grip on me. And my flesh just has this thing that I just cannot get away from this thing. But I just encourage you to, during the prayer time, there'll be people on our, prayer team, go ahead and do that. There'll be people on our left and on our right that would love to pray for you. And if you're just trapped in a thing that you don't want to be in, man, have them go and pray for you. You all know, like if you were bound by a bunch of ropes and they had a bunch of knots and it's like, all right, get free. You all know that it'd be a lot faster if you'd go up to 2 or 3 people and have them start untying knots with you and do those things for you. And Paul talks about, or the writer of Hebrews talks about, that sin is, you can be easily entangled into sin. And so he talks about it like ropes. And so go and ask somebody to just pray for you. Help me untie this thing. Contend with me that God would set me free from this thing. You are not destined to struggle with sin forever. There's no Bible verse in the scriptures that says, hey, you're gonna deal with that sin your entire life. There's a ton of Bible verses about freedom and Jesus coming to set you free and never giving up, the fight in those things. But there's not a Bible verse that says, like, sorry, you're just gonna struggle with that your entire life. That is not true. That's the enemy whispering, I guess this is how life is gonna be forever. No, that's a lie. And so if you know there's something I still need to be set free from, go and ask someone to pray for you. And then if you know somebody in your life, when we did the little thing before, and I was like, can you think of somebody who's just living a life and they're stuck? If you have somebody in your family, if your own kids, if your own family members, if your own husband, wife, distant family, friends, coworkers, whatever, if you can just think of someone who's trapped in a thing and stuck, then I would encourage you, go and ask someone to pray for that person. You contend for them as well. Pray for them that God would reach them, that they would turn to him, and that God would actually set them free from those things. You see what sin is actively doing in their lives, how it's messing up their mind and changing their heart and stealing life from them. You see those things. And so go and have somebody pray for them and reach out. But let's respond in those ways. Let me pray.